Mina just dropped a bold prediction about the Ravens, and I don't think enough people are talking about it yet. She's calling Jesse Minter her preseason pick for Coach of the Year. Not a top 5 guess. Not a he could sneak into the conversation kind of take. Her actual pick before a single snap of the regular season has been played. And when you hear the reason behind it, it's not just a hot take for the sake of getting attention. There's real substance behind what she's saying. And if you're a Ravens fan, this is a kind of prediction that should get you fired up. Let's set the stage here, because context matters a lot with this one. Jesse Minter is walking into his first season as head coach of the Baltimore Ravens after a year the franchise wants to forget, a losing season. That's not a phrase we're used to typing when it comes to this organization. Baltimore has built its identity for almost 3 decades on defense, toughness, and never having a season where you call the whole thing a step backward. Last year broke that streak, and it broke in a way that hit the heart of what this franchise is supposed to be about. The defense fell all the way to 24th in the league. 24th. I don't know about you guys, but when I first saw that number, it didn't even feel real. This is a franchise where defense isn't just a phase of the game. It's basically religion. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, that whole lineage of guys who made Baltimore synonymous with hitting people in the mouth and making offenses miserable. And last season, that identity just wasn't there. Not close to it. So now you've got Jesse Minter stepping into 2 roles at the same time. He's the head coach, which means the entire operation runs through him. Every decision, every culture shift, every locker room conversation, that's on his shoulders now. But he's also still the guy calling the defense, still the architect of the scheme that's supposed to get this unit back to being feared again. That's an enormous amount of responsibility to hand one person in year one, and it's exactly why Mina Kimes' prediction is such a bold one. Here's what she said, and I want to break this down piece by piece because every part of it matters. Kimes said she thinks Minter has a chance to do a full unit turnaround, and that if that happens, he's going to get some of the credit for it. Her words were basically that this defense has the potential to make a real leap this season. Now, when a national voice with a level of respect around the league says something like that about a team that just finished 24th on defense, that's not a small statement. That's her putting her name on a prediction that a lot of people would call risky. But she didn't stop there, and this is where I think the take gets even more interesting. She was honest about the fact that not all of this turnaround is going to be about Minter himself. She specifically pointed to the additions this team made and to Nnamdi Madubuike coming back as major factors. Think about what that means for a second. You lose a player like Madubuike for most of the season, and your defensive front just isn't the same. Interior pressure disappears. Run fits get shakier, and suddenly a talented roster looks average because one of its most disruptive pieces is standing on the sideline in street clothes. Getting him back healthy isn't a small storyline. That's a legitimate difference maker returning to a unit that desperately needed him. So Kimes is giving credit where it's due. She's not saying Minter alone is going to wave a magic wand and fix everything. She's acknowledging that talent returning to the field and talent being added through the offseason are real factors in why this defense could look completely different in the fall. I respect that kind of honesty in a prediction. It would have been easy for her to just hype up the coach and ignore the roster changes, but she didn't do that. She's giving a complete picture. And then she gets into the part that I think is the real heart of her argument, the part that should matter most to Ravens fans. She said a lot of the potential turnaround does have to do with Jesse Minter specifically, and she backs that up with something concrete from his past. She brought up what he did as a defensive coordinator in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Before he got there, that defense ranked 29th in the league in EPA per play. 29th. That's about as far down the ladder as you can get. And under Minter, that unit turned things around and finished 7th in back-to-back seasons. Not one fluke year. 2 straight seasons in the top 10 after starting from basically the bottom of the league. Let that sink in for a second. Going from 29 to 7th isn't a small step forward. That's a complete transformation of an entire unit's identity. And Kimes made a point that I think is really important here. She said that Chargers roster, in her opinion, was actually less talented than the group Minter has in Baltimore right now. So he took a defense with less raw talent and turned it into a top 10 unit for 2 straight years. Now he's walking into Baltimore with a defense that has more talent on paper, former high picks, proven veterans, guys who've had Pro Bowl level production before, and he's being asked to do something similar. If you're sitting here as a Ravens fan trying to figure out whether this defense can bounce back, that track record has to give you some confidence. This isn't a coach with zero history of fixing a broken unit. This is a coach who has literally done it before, with less to work with. That's not speculation. That's something that already happened on tape, in real games, over multiple seasons. Now here's where Kimes added an important condition to her prediction, and I think it's the most honest part of the whole thing. She said that for this complete turnaround to happen, it obviously requires a full healthy season from Lamar Jackson. And when you think about it, that makes total sense, even though her prediction is specifically about the defense. Football doesn't happen in a vacuum. If the offense is stalling out because the quarterback is banged up or missing time, that puts more pressure right back on the defense. Field position gets worse. Time of possession shifts. The defense has to play more snaps, defend a shorter field more often, and carry a heavier load just to keep the team competitive. We saw some of that dynamic play out last season when Lamar wasn't available for stretches of the year. The whole operation felt different. So when Kimes ties her Coach of the Year prediction for Minter to Lamar staying healthy, she's not hedging just to cover herself. She's pointing out a real structural truth about how this team is built. Everything in Baltimore runs through Lamar Jackson being on the field and playing like himself. If that happens, this defense gets to operate the way it's supposed to, with the offense controlling the clock, building leads, and letting Minter's unit play with the kind of aggression and confidence that got him to the top 10 with the Chargers. I think that's actually the smartest part of her entire prediction. She's not just saying Minter is talented. She's connecting the dots for exactly what needs to happen around him for this vision to come true. It's not a blind guess. It's a prediction built on conditions that Ravens fans can actually track as the season goes along. Is Lamar healthy? Is Matabike playing like himself again? Are the new additions contributing the way they're supposed to? If those boxes get checked, then according to Kimes, Minter is right there in the Coach of the Year conversation. Let's talk about what it would actually mean for Minter to win that award in year one. Coach of the Year usually goes to someone who either takes a team that was struggling and turns into a winner, or someone who exceeds expectations in a dramatic way. Given where this defense finished last season, and given that Minter is doing this while also handling all the responsibilities of being a first-year head coach, a turnaround of this magnitude would absolutely fit that mold. It's not just about wins and losses either. Voters pay attention to statistical transformation, and going from 24 to a unit that's playing like a top 10 defense again will be the kind of story that gets national attention all season long. And I think that's part why this prediction feels so believable coming from Kimes specifically. She's not just a national voice throwing out names for headlines. She's someone who studies tape closely and talks about scheme and personnel in a way that shows she actually understands what's happening on the field, not just a box score. When someone with that level of detail in her analysis says she believes in a specific coach's ability to fix a broken unit, that carries weight. Now, let's be real about the other side of this too, because I don't want to just sit here and act like this is a guaranteed outcome. Predictions made before the season starts are exactly that. Predictions. There's a long list of things that have to break the right way for any Coach of the Year campaign to actually happen. Injuries at other positions could pop up. New additions might take time to gel within the scheme. First-year head coaches sometimes hit rough patches simply because they're adjusting to a completely different level of responsibility than they had as a coordinator. Even the most talented staff needs time to build continuity, especially early in the season while guys are still learning tendencies and building trust in new roles. But here's the thing that keeps bringing me back to why I think this prediction deserves serious attention instead of being dismissed as just a bold take for headlines. Minter isn't walking into this job as an unknown. He has a documented history of fixing a defense that started in a bad spot. He's already shown he can take players who maybe aren't getting hyped up nationally and put them in positions to succeed within his scheme. That Chargers turnaround wasn't a one-year fluke either. It held up over back-to-back seasons, which tells you it wasn't just some lucky stretch of good play. That's coaching. That's scheme design. That's putting players in position to make plays consistently. When I think about what Baltimore's defense could look like with a healthy Matabike anchoring the interior again, paired with a coach who has already proven he can elevate a defense with less talent than what he is now, I start to understand exactly why Kimes is making this pick. She's not asking Ravens fans to believe in something with zero foundation. She's asking people to trust a pattern that's already shown up once in this same coach's career. And honestly, this is the kind of storyline that makes the start of the season so exciting to follow. We're not just watching to see if the Ravens win games, although obviously that matters most. We're watching to see if the specific transformation actually happens in real time. Every week the defense takes the field. You're going to be able to check it against this prediction. Is the pressure showing up more consistently? Are the takeaways coming? Is the run defense tightening up compared to where it was last year? Those are the exact kind of things that would validate what Kimes is saying week by week, game by game. I also think it says something about the confidence this organization has in Minter that they handed him both roles at once. Head coach and primary architect of the defense. That's not something every team would be comfortable doing with a first-time head coach. But Baltimore clearly believes his scheme knowledge and his ability to connect with players are strong enough that keeping him hands-on with the defense, rather than stepping back into a purely administrative role, gives this team the best chance to fix what went wrong last season. There's something else worth pointing out here, too. When a coach is calling the defense himself as a head coach, there's a direct line between his football mind and what shows up on Sundays. There's no filter, no middleman translating his vision into the scheme. Whatever Minter believes needs to happen to fix this unit, he's the one drawing it up and calling it in real time. If his history with the Chargers is any indication, that direct hands-on approach is exactly how he's built success before. So where does that leave us heading into the season? You've got a national analyst with a track record of detailed, informed takes putting her name behind Jessie Minter as her Coach of the Year pick before a single game has been played. She's tying to a defense that has real reason for optimism, a key piece return to health in Matabike, new additions join the mix, and a coach who has already proven he can take a defense from the bottom of the league to the top 10. The one major condition standing between this prediction and reality is a full healthy season from Lamar Jackson, which honestly is the same condition that hangs over almost everything this team hopes to accomplish. I think this is exactly the kind of prediction that should get Ravens fans excited heading into the season. Not because it's guaranteed to happen, but because the reason behind it is solid. It's not built on hope alone. It's built on something Minter has already done once in his career, with a roster that had less talent than what he's working with now in Baltimore. Let's dig into that Chargers comparison a little more, because I think it deserves more attention than a single mention in passing. Going from 29th in EPA per play to 7th isn't the kind of jump that happens because of one big free agent signing or one lucky bounce in the turnover column. EPA per play is one of those numbers that reflects the whole picture. Every down, every situation, run and pass, early downs and money downs. When a defense climbs that far in that metric over back-to-back seasons, it usually means the scheme itself became more disruptive. The calls became sharper, and the players started executing at a higher level within a system they trusted. That kind of jump tells you the coaching staff figured out how to put players in position to win their matchups more consistently, and that they built enough continuity for it to hold up over multiple years instead of fading after one hot stretch. Now bring that same coaching mind to Baltimore. The Ravens' defense last season wasn't short on recognizable talent. You had players who had shown flashes of being difference makers, guys who had been productive in the past. But the unit as a whole never found consistency. 24th in the league isn't a talent problem as much as it's often an execution and scheme problem, especially when you consider some of the injuries that hit that group, including losing a player as disruptive as Matabike for a chunk of the season. When your best interior presence is out, opposing offensive lines get to focus their attention elsewhere. Run lanes open up that normally wouldn't be there, and the whole disruption profile of the defense changes. That's not a knock on the other players. That's just how football works. Lose your anchor up front, and the whole structure shifts. So when Kimes points to Matabike coming back as one of the reasons his defense could turn things around, she's highlighting something that Ravens fans who watched last season closely already understand. His presence alone changes protections, changes run schemes, and forces opposing coordinators to account for him on every single snap. Add in whatever new pieces came in through the draft and free agency, And you start to see why there's real optimism here beyond just blind faith in a first-year head coach. But I keep coming back to the coaching piece because that's the part of this prediction that I think separates it from just being generic optimism about a defense getting healthier. Plenty of units get healthier and still don't take a real leap forward. Health alone doesn't turn a 24th ranked defense into a top 10 unit. It takes a scheme that maximizes what those healthy players can do. And it takes a coach who knows how to adjust week to week as opposing offenses try to counter what he's doing. Mina has already shown he can do exactly that with the Chargers, working with less talent than what he is now. That's the foundation Kimes is building her prediction on. And honestly, it's a pretty reasonable foundation to build on. There's also something to be said about the psychological side of a defense believing in its coach and its scheme. When players trust that the calls being made are going to put them in position to make plays, you see more aggression, more confidence, and fewer of those hesitant, tentative reps that lead to blown assignments. A first-year head coach who is also the primary play caller on defense has a direct chance to build that trust quickly because the players are hearing his voice and seeing his fingerprint on the scheme every single day, not just on Sundays. That immediate connection between vision and execution can accelerate a turnaround in ways that take longer to build when there's more separation between a head coach and the defensive play calling. I also think it's worth mentioning how much scrutiny Minter is going to be under this season because of exactly this kind of prediction. When a respected national voice puts your name out there as a Coach of the Year favorite before the season even starts, that adds a certain level of pressure and attention to everything you do. Every game, every defensive series is going to be measured against that expectation. Some coaches thrive under that kind of spotlight, and some struggle with it, especially in year one when they're still finding their footing as the person running the entire operation, not just one side of the ball. I think this is one of the storylines to watch closely as the season unfolds, not just whether defense improves statistically, but whether Minter handles the added scrutiny that comes with being publicly named a Coach of the Year candidate before he's coached a single regular season game as a head coach. And let's not overlook the fact that Kimes tying the prediction to a healthy season from Lamar is really her acknowledging how interconnected everything is on this roster. Ravens fans know this better than almost anyone. When Lamar is healthy and playing at his level, this offense controls the tempo of games, builds leads, and forces opposing teams into obvious passing situations where Minter's defense can pin its ears back and get after quarterback. When Lamar is out or limited, the whole dynamic of the season changes, and that puts more pressure on a defense that's still trying to find its footing under a new system. So in a way, this Coach of the Year prediction isn't just about Minter's scheme or Matabike's health. It's tied directly to the health of the most important player on the entire roster. I think that's what makes this such a compelling storyline heading into the year. It's not one single factor that determines whether Kimes' prediction comes true. It's a combination of things lining up together: a healthy Lamar, a healthy Matabike, new additions contributing right away, and a coach with a proven history of engineering exactly this kind of turnaround. When you stack all those pieces up, you start to understand why a national analyst with her level of detail and her breakdowns felt confident enough to put Minter's name out there this early. What do you guys think about this one? Do you believe Jesse Minter can pull off that same kind of turnaround he did with the Chargers? Or do you think there are too many variables in year one as a first-time head coach for this to actually happen? I'd love to hear where you land on this.
And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out, and I'll see you in the next video.